Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thank you very much for coming here today, friends. Thank you very much.
Well, friends.
We don't have our sound systems just yet, but
We
they
have
are
your
not
charisma.
essential. What is essential is for every single one of us to be here and spreading the correct and good message of Ukraine and tell the whole world the truth so that the people have the ability to make an informed choice on what to do in the face of this genocide perpetrated by the Russian terrorist state. And we will start, as we always do, with the Ukrainian anthem. We have our lovely singer here. Let's go.
Слава Україні! Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Слава тричі!
Slava! 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 Thank you very much to our friend Tommy here, always very nice. Thank you, my friends, for coming here today. As always, we need to show our support as much as we can so that the whole world knows what's happening in Ukraine and so that the whole world is able to act accordingly. Not with silence, not with denial, but with real and positive action for a better future, for a better tomorrow. Because what the terrorist regime of Russia has done cannot be forgiven and cannot be forgotten until those who have perpetrated these crimes are held accountable for them. That is what we will achieve inevitably. My friends, today is a very important day for a few different reasons. One of them is that our president, Zelensky, has received some of the prisoners of war of the terrorist Russian Federation who have been sent to Turkey. He went to Turkey and he brought those heroes of Ukraine back. So for that, thank you very much and very well done. That is the first piece of very good news today. Exactly. Let's round of applause. But that's not the only piece of important news that we have today. Something unbelievably important also is that today is the birthday of Zaluzhny, one of our main commanders of the Ukrainian military, one of the people responsible for the Ukrainian ability to fight back against the Russian invasion and to defend itself against this encroachment and this unprovoked war that has honestly not been declared, but he has done it anyway. Because Putin does not admit this is a war. Why is that, you might ask? Because Putin does not want to admit that the prisoners of war are prisoners of war. He prefers it to remain unknown, their status to remain unknown. Because if they are considered prisoners of war, then Putin is obviously a war criminal. because he does not respect the rights of those prisoners who have been taken into captivity. There have been rules and laws accorded in the past that prevent these people from suffering torture and execution at the hands of the ones who have captured them. And yet, Russia has done torture and execution against these people who are powerless to fight back, these people who can't do anything at that point because they have been captured. It is, of course, a violation of human rights and a lot more. So that is the second piece of news that we have today about our Zaluzhny, one of our great generals. The third bit of news we have today, and it is also very important, especially for context in this war, is that today is the 500th day of this war, of this
war.
escalation that has started by the Russian Federation. But there is a caveat to that, because this war has in reality started all the way back in 2014. So this war has been going on for 9 years. 500 days is the amount of time that the full-scale war has been going on. But there has been a local war in Donbass throughout these years, and we must not forget about this, and we must not forget how this whole situation has started with the terrorist regime of Russia attacking Ukraine unprovoked, without as much as a declaration of war being shown. That is how Russia deals with any country at its borders. It invades them and then it tries to talk, to bite for time when things don't go very well. Because things are not going very well, that's for sure. For the Russian regime, things are going very poorly right now. The supposed 3-day special military operation is becoming more and more special with every single day. Now it's a 500-day special military operation. And that is, if we're not counting with what happened before that, which once again started all the way back in 2014, in this unprovoked and genocidal war against the Ukrainian people that Vladimir Putin has started. And because of that, we must come here as long as this war continues, and we must inform the world on what has to be done to stop it. Stop Russia, stop the war!
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 Help Ukraine, protect peace!
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 Russia is a terrorist state!
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 Now, I will give word to another one of our lovely speakers here in our protest. She will speak about the Ukrainian children.
When we speak about our children, we should remember that the main problem. Sorry, she wasn't.
That's right, that's right.
The main problem in Ukraine is not just war. The main problem in Ukraine is about our future, about our children. So let's ask first also save our children and save peace in whole world, because when we save, as I said, the children is our future. So when we save our children, we save our future. A lot of children are amazing fighters, amazing scientists, amazing sport champions, and just because of war, they lost this opportunity to find themselves in this world. So save our children, save the peace.
Save our children, save the peace!
Скажи, save our children, типа захисти наш
Save Ukraine's children!
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 It's quite hard to speak without a microphone, and it's quite hard just speaking in Ukraine. It's not
нації!
Смерть москалям!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thank you very much, my friends. And remember, everybody who has their own message, who wants to come here and show their support for the Ukrainian cause, can do so. And more than that, is welcome to do so. Because if we remain silent, nothing changes. But if every single one of us does something to change this situation, even if it's the minutest amount of change, then multiplied by the billions of people who are on the planet, that change will be monumental. And that change will come for sure, as long as we all do our part. Today, we went to a protest of the hypocritical movement of Stop the War.
Are we going to stop the war?
Appealing to both sides.
That has happened, I already told you. And that has failed.
Yeah. So that's our aim, to appeal to both sides, because on the mediacy, negotiate peace. That's all.
And what does Ukraine have to give to Russia to achieve this peace?
They'll come to negotiations.
What does Ukraine have to give to Russia?
It will come to the negotiations.
You can't answer this question. Well, why is it so difficult for you? What does Ukraine have to give to Russia to achieve this peace? Ukraine already gave their nukes.
I can't speak for Ukraine.
Oh, you can't speak for Ukraine. Then
Then
why
why
are you
is
here?
this exist?
Exactly. Why are you guys here? You're speaking for Ukraine. You're speaking against
We
Ukraine.
are appealing to both sides.
You're speaking against Ukraine right now. Oh, look, wage is not war, as if it has something to do with that. No. Keep your propaganda to yourself. Keep your Russophile propaganda to yourself, guys. I don't need it.
That's not related to Ukraine.
Why are you keeping it here? This is a supposedly anti-war protest.
Ukraine is defeated, the problems of poverty in Britain will be
Of
solved.
course,
Just like
of course, all the homeless will stop being homeless. Just give the shells. Instead of giving Ukraine shells, give the homeless the shells. Give them. That's gonna solve homelessness, right?
giving up
You guys aren't thinking right.
giving up the nuclear weapons was one way Ukraine.
Hold on. Героям слава!
These individuals claim that if they stop supplying Ukraine with weapons, the war will end. Unfortunately, they are beyond the understanding that underpowering the victim does not stop the aggressor. And they have always failed to acknowledge this basic piece of information. We have spoken with them many times. We have asked them, who invaded Ukraine? They never want to answer. They never want to give a clear-cut reply to that question, because they know it was Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia has escalated this war. Russia is to blame for this war. It's as simple as that. Any kind of deviation from that is whataboutism. And woefully, we need to face the facts head on. We need to live in reality, not in conspiracy theory. Whatever other countries did somewhere else has nothing to do with the situation in Ukraine. But what Russia has done in the past is very telling to what they have done in Ukraine. Remember about Georgia. All the way back in 2008, the Russians have invaded Georgia with exactly the same kind of excuses they've given after the invasion of Ukraine in 2014. They were saying that the Russian speakers were getting harassed. They were saying the Russian speakers were getting exterminated. Whilst now we see a huge amount of the Ukrainian military speaking Russian whilst fighting against the Russian terrorist regime. My friends, the Russians knew from the very beginning that this was complete nonsense. Yevgeny Prigozhin himself has said so many times, he spilled the beans, he revealed the cards, he told so to everybody, to everyone in the world, that this war was not started to save anybody. This war was started for greed. This war was started because the Russian elites wanted to ransack Ukraine, because they wanted to own Ukraine and to dominate it for their own gains. Not to save the Russian speakers or the ethnic Russians, and much less to face some kind of a phantom Nazi group that never existed in the first place. Prigozhin said so himself, that they had been fighting the Ukrainian military for years, and they were still looking for these supposed Nazis. They still couldn't find them. They were nowhere to be found.
Except the synagogue.
Why is that? Oh yes, except in the synagogue. Because that makes as much sense as the claims that the Russians have made about Ukraine. I mean, of course, Ukraine has a Jewish Nazi as a president. It makes all the sense in the world. He wants to commit suicide. It makes all the sense in the world, my friends. But that's not all of it. We have heard the most laughable and ridiculous arguments presented to us in today's protest. We have heard people telling us that this war needs to stop. And when we ask them, how are you going to do it? How are you going to stop the war? They struggle to find an answer. It's like people come to a protest to say something, to give a message to people. And when they're asked, what is your message? They don't know what to say. They're caught with their pants
I've got
down.
water.
Because, my friends, they have
Plenty
no
of water.
message. The only thing
Yeah,
they
loads.
have is propaganda that's coming all the way from Kremlin. That's the only thing they have. And that's the only thing that will ever show. We have to face off against such silly ideas. Because even the most ridiculous points, even the most ridiculous ideas will eventually, inevitably, gain some traction in the world. It is up to us, my friends, up to every single one of us to stop that from happening. Because Ukraine will not be able to win if Ukraine does not get support it needs from abroad. And Ukraine needs more support. Ukraine needs air defense. Ukraine needs fighter jets. Ukraine needs tanks. Ukraine needs shells. Ukraine needs its arms. Because as the ancient saying goes, arms keep peace. How else can we negotiate with a terrorist state like Russia, who attacks any country that they expect will not fight back? How else? Why did Russia not attack Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania?
Because they're in NATO.
All of which the Russians have claimed were rightfully, according to them, in their sphere of influence. Why did they not do it? They did not do it because they were in NATO. Because Russia is afraid of NATO, and rightfully so. Because NATO is powerful. NATO could actually beat back any Russian invasion. But Ukraine couldn't. It never had anything to do with Russian speakers, or with Nazis, or with gas, or with oil, or whatever else people come up with. It had to do with one thing, and that was accountability. The Russians felt like there would be no accountability if they attacked Ukraine. That is the mentality of a bully. Because a bully is not looking for a fair fight. A bully is not looking for a challenge. A bully is looking to abuse someone else, someone weaker, someone who will not fight back. But the Russians were wrong. And Ukraine has proven so, and it keeps proving so every single day. However, the world needs to know that Russia cannot be trifled with. Russia cannot be negotiated with. The only negotiation tactic Russia understands is force. That is the only thing they get. And that is the only thing they will get until they get out of Ukraine. World, wake up!
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 Stop Russia, stop the war!
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 Fighter jets for Ukraine!
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 Air defense 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 for Ukraine.
In defense for Ukraine.
My friends, it is not a coincidence that Tommy gets so much more enthusiastic when he speaks about air defense, because air defense is one of the most important things for us to have.
Did somebody say in defense for Ukraine? In defense for Ukraine. 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 In defense for Ukraine.
With so much air defense, who else in the world can stand against Ukraine? We need to calm down. We can't have that much air defense. We need other things too, you know? We need fighter jets, we need tanks, we need shells. There's a lot of things. But thank you very much, Tommy. You know, a real supporter of Ukraine right here. He was there with us today when we went to counter-protest against the hypocritical movement of Stop the War, of the people
So-called Stop the War.
who when asked how they will stop the war, are unable to answer. The only thing they say is regurgitate the same Russian points. Excuse me. And when they were confronted with this, when they were asked, why do you only say the same thing that Russia says? They said, no, we want Russian troops out of Ukraine. When we asked how you want them out of Ukraine, once again, they did not know what to say.
I tell you what they do say. How do you get the Russians out of Ukraine? They sing an old Simon and Garfunkel song, Sound of Silence.
But the point is, when the question is a bit difficult, they don't know what to say. And as for the other questions, as for the question why they keep regurgitating all the same Russian propaganda again and again, it goes without saying. It is obvious, my friends, because on their very posters it was saying stop NATO expansion. That is what they are saying. The same thing that Russia was saying all of these years. Every time a new country joins NATO, it's voluntary. It's out of that country's volition. Every time a country falls in the sphere of influence of Russia, it's because Russia has bullied, blackmailed, and threatened them to do so. Or simply invaded them. Like they have done with Ukraine, like they have done with Georgia, like they have done with Moldova, with Belarus, and with Kazakhstan. And this is something that unfortunately some people don't know. Because Russia did indeed invade Belarus and Kazakhstan when they had their protest against the Russian-controlled puppet regime. The Russians sent their tanks and sent their troops to Almaty and to the capital of Belarus. Both those capitals. And they quashed both of those peaceful protests. That is not something that we can simply look beyond. We need to see what Russia has done. And we need to see what Russia is doing now and what it will do in the future. Think about it. Russia attacked Ukraine when it was even weaker than now. When Ukraine was the weakest, then Russia attacked it. Who in their right mind would claim that weakening Ukraine now would stop the war? It will not happen, my friends. It will never happen. As long as Russia has the ability to continue to invade countries and get away with it. That is the reality that we cannot forget, my friends. Because if we want to stop a conflict, we side with the victim, not with the perpetrator. A very interesting fact in the supposed Stop the War protest is that in their posters they have an image of a nuclear weapon with a sign of forbidden around it. It was very interesting for me personally to see that. And I asked them, why do you have this image? Considering that Ukraine was the country that has given up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world, in the biggest nuclear demilitarization in human history, to achieve world peace, and has received nothing in return except a promise of non-aggression by Russia. A promise that we all very well know was definitely, obviously kept, don't we? Because of course, Russia has the right whatever they want, as long as the country they invade does not have the nuclear weapons and the ability to fight back. That is the mentality of the terrorist Russian Federation. That is the mentality of the great kleptocracy, the country-sized criminal syndicate, the Khanate of Muscovy. That is how they see the world. You either have the arms to defend yourself against them, in which case they will have to negotiate with you, or you don't, and they will not even attempt negotiations. They will simply move in and force you to do whatever they want you to do. That is how Russia functions. And when I ask these individuals if they had heard about the Budapest Memorandum, if they had heard about the sacrifice that Ukrainian people have committed in order to achieve world peace, they said no. They never heard of the Budapest Memorandum. They had no idea what I was talking about. These individuals had a sign of a nuclear weapon in the forbidden bracket on their posters, and they were unaware of the biggest nuclear demilitarization of human history. How does that work? How can anybody in their right mind come to a protest and not be able to tell what they're protesting against, what they're protesting for? What are the solutions? They had no idea. My friends, we know what we want. We know what needs to be done to end this war once and for all. Not for a day, not for a month, not for a year, but forever. Because as we have said to those hypocrites in the Stop the War protests, the option to negotiate with Russia will never guarantee long-term peace. In fact, it guarantees long-term war, because Russia will simply repeat what they have done in the past again and again and again until there's nobody else left to fight them. And if NATO chooses to show itself as toothless, if NATO chooses inaction instead of opposing this obvious threat at the Khanate of Muscovy, then who knows if in a few years, after Russia rebuilds and regroups and reforms, who knows if they will not move to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, or Poland? Who knows? Who can truly tell? Because those countries don't have any nuclear weapons either. And if NATO does not respond to this situation here and now, who is to tell if they are going to respond to an attack against their own countries, against countries that are part of NATO?
It's just something I saw at the so-called Stop the War rally. And like I said, whether you like NATO or not is beside the point. NATO, Ukraine has the right to join any group that they like. But like I said, this so-called Stop the War, they seem to have a bugbear with NATO. They hate NATO, but then I asked some of them, where is the anti-NATO movement in Poland? Where is the anti-NATO movement in Czechia? Where is the anti-NATO movement in Romania? I specifically point out countries that had the misfortune of being imprisoned in the USSR or Muscovy satellites under the Warsaw Pact. So where is the anti-NATO movement in Slovakia? Where is the anti-NATO movement even in in Hungary? Where is the anti-NATO movement in Romania, Bulgaria? They couldn't answer me. I know you can say my joke, but once again, they answered me with that Simon and Garfunkel song, The Sound of Silence. So, whether you like NATO or not is beside the point. But Ukraine has a right to do whatever it wants. Muscovy has no right to tell any other country what to do, let alone Ukraine. And like I said, I stress the point Where is, if NATO is so awful, where is the anti-NATO movement in countries that used to be in the Warsaw Pact? Why is it the closer these countries are geographically to Muscovy, why is the stronger the support for NATO membership? Don't you find that remarkable? Thank you for putting up with me. I may say something later. Slava Ukraini
Is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state.
Stop Putin, stop the war.
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 Friends, we have support from all over the world. We must not forget to thank every single one of those people for their support. Because it takes work to do research. It takes work to learn what is going on in Ukraine. It should not be taken for granted. Now I will give word to one of our Scottish friends with the best car I've seen in my life, honestly. The best car design right over there with the Ukrainian flag. You know, I have to give some respect to that.
Guys, it's such an honour to be here today. I will try and hopefully my voice will start encouraging to get some volume behind it. I wear this flag with complete pride. I was first in Ukraine in 2001 to do some humanitarian projects, and I've been back very, very regularly. During the war, I think I've been back 22 times, taking vehicles and ambulances over there. And on one of my journeys back, I stopped in Poland, and I went to the concentration camp in Poland. And the big question in my mind was, what were people doing when these atrocities were happening? Why were the neighbours of the camp, why were people not rising up? And in this war, when I was in Kramatorsk 2 weeks ago, I see soldiers driving right-hand drive vehicles. There's more right-hand drive vehicles than there is left-hand drive vehicles in the army there just now. Because volunteers here have decided not to turn the cheek, not to ignore what's going on, but have given sacrificially to provide drones, to provide vehicles, and they are making a massive difference. I stand here in shame of the building over there because in Parliament they don't even allow MPs to discuss openly about the agreement we made with Ukraine. It gets shut down immediately if somebody brings that up. When Crimea was invaded, it was decided it's not a legal agreement. I'm sorry about that. Well, that didn't happen in my name. And it didn't happen in my friend's name. So we stand with Ukraine, and there is an army of volunteers from all over the world. When I'm hanging about the Polish border, bringing in more vehicles, I meet people from just about every nation in the world. I met people from South Africa, from so many different European nations, because an army of people are making a difference. On the 27th of February last year, I decided to leave my work. I got my car wrapped and I've travelled up and down the country. I don't know to how many meetings. I would guess maybe over 100. It's maybe only my 4th time here actually in London, because it's a long way for an electric car to come. But I'm in Birmingham regularly, and there's an amazing community there. So the car causes people walk past and they say, "Free Ukraine," and that is a simple message. We want Ukraine to be free. Why should Ukrainians not have the same rights we do to stand here in free speech?
which we take for granted.
Yeah, we take everything for granted here. We complain about potholes and how long it takes to see a doctor. But I can look up in the sky and there's going to be no missiles firing down on me today. My children are not going to be kidnapped and taken away to re-education camps. My female friends are very unlikely to be gang raped. You know, the things that are a daily occurrence in Ukraine in my lifetime. So I want to be able to stand up to my children and my grandchildren and say I was not silent. And I encourage everybody else to do something, because together we are a mighty, mighty army. Slava Ukraine!
Slava Nazi!
We will win!
Thank you very much for our friend here to come here and to show his support. It is not something everybody does, and that cannot be taken for granted by any one of us. We must never take for granted the support Ukraine gets, because this support was not there in 2014. Now the world knows what's going on. Now the world sees what Russia truly is. Now we can get somewhere. Now we can do something. Make a better future, a better tomorrow. A future for the children of Ukraine and of the whole world. A better future. Not a future where they are sent forward in meat ways, as the Russians call their own attacks, to die for nothing. To die for a war started by a maniac. To die for the ambitions of his own crooks in his regime. That is what we stand here against. We stand for a better future. We stand here for peace, prosperity, trade, and a better tomorrow. But Russia stands against that. Russia does not want peace. Russia wants to ransack Ukraine and to ransack every single other country that is not defended well enough. That is what Russia always wanted. That is what Russia is trying to do now. That is what we must make sure Russia fails in trying to accomplish. And we will do this as long as we stand together. All together, we will win.
All together, we will win!
All together, we will win.
All together, we will win!
All together, we will win.
All together, we will win!
All together, we will win.
All together, we will win!
World, wake up!
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 Since the full-blown invasion, and almost 250,000 Russian soldiers officially killed on our soil. I would like just to recap what Russia have done since USSR broke apart and they had the chance to start an independent nation. 1991 to 1993, Georgian Civil War involvement. 1991-1992, South Ossetian War. 92 to 93, war in Abkhazia. 92, involvement in Moldovan Transnistria War. 92-97, Tajikistan Civil War. 1994-96, First Chechen War. The key word is first, it wasn't last. War in Dagestan in 1999. 99 to 2009, Second Chechen War. 2008, they invaded Georgia. 2009-2017, insurgency into North Caucasus. 2015 to present, Russia involvement, heavy involvement in Syrian civil war, where lots of civilians are being slaughtered by, officially, Wagner, that Putin recently said that the Russian government financed that. And also 2018 until present, Central African Republic civil war involvement, and our war from 2014 until present moment. And those who are not willing to participate in this one under Putin's regime, I just want to remind you, the definition of freedom is a power or right to act, speak or think as one wants. When Putin became a president, one of his first things that he did, he took over the media. Then he banned all protests, which is a right and a power to speak and think out loud. He banned any criticism of any wrongdoing of his army and the mercenaries that spoke against him, and people got arrested, students got expelled from universities. I personally do not want to live in a world where Russia can win over a neighboring friendly nation that since 1991, when we become independent and broke apart from rotting USSR until now, why do they call us the breadbasket of Europe? And why, whenever anyone starts to speak about Russia, either it's Moldova begging for help because they are afraid they will be invaded. Most of European countries are making their budget of defense, like Germany tripled their budget just because they are preparing for uncertainty, because Russians cannot be trusted. Before 24th of February last year, when they said we have no plans to invade Ukraine, yet they did. When they did invade, they said we have no plans to occupy Ukraine. We only want to defend Russian-speaking citizens of Ukraine in Donbass and Donetsk. What the hell they were doing in Kherson and just outside Kiev with paratroopers. Every single agreement that Russia has made was broken. They are liars and killers. And Putin admitting that he sponsored Wagner was not only the most atrocious thing that I ever heard on the television, but also the most stupid admission of crime. Because if until recently he said Wagner has nothing to do with us, he basically admitted that everything that Wagner did, the Russian government did, because they fund them. Stop Russia! Stop the war!
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 Stop Putin! Save peace!
Stop Putin! Save peace!
Stop Putin! Save peace!
Stop Putin! Save peace!
Arm Ukraine as you promised!
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 Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
And I know I read it before, but I want to read you a poem that I wrote in English when this war just started last year, the full-blown invasion. And I wrote one today in Ukrainian language. I do apologize for any mistakes. It's the first time, because I grew up in Europe. I only spent some time in Ukraine visiting my grandparents, so I do apologize for any mistakes. But I'll read the first one in English language. When this is over and we'll count the living and the dead on both sides of the ruthless war, my family will bake some bread and break it in a silence louder than any siren or crowd's roar. When those who have made it will wake up above the peaceful sky, nor dead nor living still won't know the answer to the question why. We'll mourn those who you have slaughtered in tears of deepest sorrow. We know what we are fighting for, our home, and you don't even know who you follow. You want our land, you want us to plunder. You'll have our land for sure, albeit 6 feet under. And I want to read you my first Ukrainian poem that I ever wrote. Троянди, які не коляться, та близькі, які в ЗСУ більше не моляться. Повний радісних людей арени та століття безмовні сирени. Наші діти в бомбосховищах більше ніколи не ховаються, а на вулиці голосно та весело граються. Русня у себе, а не в наших полях не є, та більше ніколи і нікому життя не псує. Дуже хочу проснутися у день, коли буде наша перемога. Тільки про це щодня молю у Бога. Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Slava Nazi! Ukraina!
It's been, once again, sadly, we must pay tribute to those who have suffered and passed away. And if I get the name wrong, I apologise. Like I said, we had the recent tragedy in Lviv, but also one particular name in particular. It's a name, again, if I get the name wrong, I apologise. And this week we remember the deaths of Victoria and Amelia and all those who have suffered. Like I said, for the memory of the righteous is truly a blessing and an inspiration for all their days. May their souls rest in paradise. May our lives be always worthy of their memories. We say the words of the Kaddish. Nikadal, Nikadash Shmeraba, Bilma, Yiv, Vra, Yirote, Yamlik, Vakulte, Beamakom, Utkayo, the called Beit Israel, the Beit Ukraine. I remind you, Beit family, Beit Israel, Beit Ukraine, Beit Belarus. Bagla, Izvan, Kariv, Imru, Amen. Yesh Lama Rabba Imbarak, Leoman, Ilma, Umaya, Yitbarak, Beit Iran. Yitbarak, Ishtibak, Yitbara, Yitbaran, Yitnasai, Yetada, Yetale, Yetalal, Shmed, Bikusha, Briku, Leoman, Min, Holvita, Yeshirata, Tushbahata, Vegata, Yimru, Yelma, Vimruamha, Yimru, Amen. Yesh Lama, Shlaba Rabim, Shemayam, Well, Bakayim, Eleno, Vyakol, Israel, Imru, Israel, Ukraine, Belarus, Iran, Vimru, Amen. Osai Shalom, Vimru Ma. Oyosai Shalom. Eleno, Vyakol, Israel, Vyakol, Olam, Vyakol, Ukraine, Vyakol, Belarus, Vyakol, Iran, Vimru, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
And now, my friends, if we can, we will have a little musical moment here. There we go. We got our singer, we got our musician, we got everybody. Guys.
Four times. Добре, окей. Я зачну.
Sorry about that, Pablo.
Червона калина, маєш білий цвіт. Не журися, славна Україна, маєш славний рід. А ми тую червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну, гей, гей, розвеселимо. Amen.
Дякую, славне свою славу бережемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. А ми тою козацькою славу бережемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. Червона калина похилилася, комусь наша слава Україна зажурилася, а ми тою червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо. А ми тою червону калину підіймемо, а ми нашу славну Україну розвеселимо.
Слава нації!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Захисна Україна!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
The most important message that can be sent right now, a fight against a nation who threatens nuclear war. Because the nation who's at war with them dared to not simply allow them to be conquered. That is why Russia is threatening nuclear war. But why is it that Russia still hasn't used those nuclear weapons, my friends? It is because Russia knows that there will be consequences. And as long as Russia knows that there are consequences to their actions, they will be in line. Unfortunately, these consequences never came to them when they invaded Georgia, never came to them when they invaded Belarus and Kazakhstan, and when they invaded Ukraine twice. Once, the first time in 2014, and the second time now with this full-scale invasion a year and a half ago. We must make sure that the Russian terrorist regime knows their actions will not remain unpunished. Their actions will have consequences. And only like that will we be able to finally stop this war. Only by showing the whole world that terrorist acts like the ones that Russia has perpetrated in Ukraine will be punished. That is an inevitability. And that is what we will achieve. All together, we will win.
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 All together, we
will win. All together, we will win. All together, we will win. All together, we will win. All together, we will win. All together, we will win. All together, we will win. All together, we will win.
help Ukraine as you promised.
Help Ukraine as you promised.
Help Ukraine
As you promised. Help Ukraine as you promised. Help Ukraine as you promised. Help Ukraine as you promised. Help Ukraine as you promised. Help Ukraine as you promised.
Friends, we have these protests every single week. On Wednesdays at 6 o'clock. On Saturdays at 4 o'clock, as we're having it now. And on Sundays at 3 o'clock. Do not forget about that. If you want to be reminded, if you want to find our schedules, check the Instagram page of Support Ukraine London. All of the information is written there. All of this information is easily available to all the people who are interested. So let nobody claim ignorance as an excuse, because we welcome every person who wants to come here and support Ukraine. Whether they are Ukrainian or not, it does not matter. The only thing that matters is that they want to have a future for themselves and for humanity. That is our objective here. And that objective is being opposed by the Russian terrorist regime. The Russian propaganda machine is in full throttle because they know they are losing this war, and they are desperate to find ways of dealing with it somehow, anyhow. That is why they blew up the Novokakhovka dam. That is why they have mined the Zaporizhzhia power plant, the biggest nuclear power plant in Europe. And this could result in one of the biggest catastrophes in human history. Russia has been warned many times that if they use nuclear weapons, that if they blow up the Novokakhovka dam, that if they blow up the Zaporizhzhia dam, the Zaporizhzhia power plant, there will be consequences, especially about the Zaporizhzhia power plant, because we all know what happened in Chernobyl, and we do not want to repeat that endeavor again. And keep in mind, what happened in Chernobyl is fully and completely the responsibility of the Soviet Union, because the KGB knew that the power plant was built with cheap materials, and yet they did not inform the scientists of this. They did not inform the scientists working on the power plant that the moment they pressed the button to stop the reactor would explode. They did not find it necessary to tell them of this unbelievably essential information, because they wanted to continue this Potemkin country mentality for the Soviet Union. And now Russia is the head of the Potemkin country of that Soviet Union. Putin himself has said many times that for him, the collapse of the Soviet Union has been the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century. What a thing to say! Imagine a German chancellor saying that the collapse of Nazi Germany was a catastrophe, or the biggest catastrophe of the 20th century. Just imagine what would be the consequences of that. What would the people say to an individual who would claim that? And keep in mind that the Soviet Union is no better at all. Because as we've mentioned many times in the past, the Soviet Union started World War II at the same side as Nazi Germany. And the Soviet Union would have continued to be on the same side if their interests did not antagonize eventually. It was not an ideological animosity. It was an animosity of interests. And that is exactly why Russia started this war right now. The interests of the Russian elite. They wanted to conquer Ukraine. They wanted to ransack Ukraine. They wanted to get richer. It had never anything to do with Russian speakers, or ethnic Russians, or phantom Nazis, or Jewish Nazis, as the Russians sometimes call them. It had nothing to do with that. All of that was complete nonsense. And Prigozhin had said so himself. He has admitted it many times, that this war was started with one objective only, to enrich the corrupt Russian elites. Now, we stand in a world where there are some people, unfortunately, but fortunately not a lot, who still believe in this complete nonsense idea that by helping the oppressor, that by conceding to their demands, that by appeasing them with these appeasement tactics, it will end the war. It will not, my friends.
I walk away.
Exactly. That is one of my favorite points that me and Tommy have heard in Speaker's Corner. An individual came to us with a straight face and simply told us, walk away. as in Ukraine should walk away. And he was asked, how can a country walk away? How can a whole people who are getting attacked and exterminated simply walk away from it? Can you really walk away from someone who holds a knife and who's trying to stab you up? Can you walk away from that if they're running after you? Excuse me?
Negotiate.
Oh, negotiate. That's a very good one too. Negotiate what? Have we not negotiated already? How many negotiations have there been with Russia? How many negotiations have there broken in the past? Every single one of them, my friends. I'm certain that every single one of you has heard the story of Peter and the wolf. The boy who cried wolf one time too many. He used to do this prank. He was a shepherd. He was calling the villagers and shouting wolf, wolf, so that they would come and help him. And they would come and help him. And when they did, he laughed at them. Once, twice, 3 times. Eventually, a real wolf showed up. And Peter went to the villagers and asked them, there's a wolf, could you come and help me? Nobody believed in him. Because he was a liar. He was a cheater. That is exactly what Russia is. Russia is blaming Ukraine of exactly the same thing that Russia has been doing for generations. Ukraine never wanted this war with Russia. Ukraine wanted peace. No country that is preparing for war ever gives up the 3rd biggest nuclear arsenal in the whole world. No country would do that. That would make no sense whatsoever. And everybody should know this. Everybody. Russia attacked Ukraine when it was the weakest. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. When it was the weakest, not when it was strong, not when Ukraine had nuclear weapons. And keep in mind, for all the apologists who claim that there were referendums done in Crimea and Donbass, why have we forgotten of the referendums done in the past when the Soviet Union has collapsed? And this is something not a lot of people know, unfortunately. But every single Ukrainian region, except Crimea, had voted more than 80% to join Ukraine. 80%. Vast majority, my friends. And most of them were in the 90s. 90% of wanting to join Ukraine and not Russia. To separate from the Russian state and from the Soviet state. Crimea had a smaller turnaround, but still Crimea had voted to join Ukraine. Why is it that that referendum did not matter for the Russians? I tell you why. Because Russia is like the man who claims he's going to shoot you if you fail in a coin flip. And then, when he fails in a coin flip, he keeps flipping the coin over and over again until he gets the side that he wants. That is how Russia does its diplomacy. That is how Russia does its politics. Politics of fear-mongering, destruction and genocide. That is modern-day Russia, my friends. And let no one forget about the terrifying future that awaits all of humanity if Russia gets away with this. Because then the whole planet will have endless wars started by nuclear powers. Because they will see the countries that don't have nuclear weapons as powerless and completely incapable of doing anything to them. I mean, if all a nuclear power has to do is to say, I'm going to use nukes, don't you dare oppose me, and then they can have whatever other country they want, what's preventing Putin from simply walking to Washington and saying, I have nukes, you better obey now? Well, then the Americans could say, we have nukes too, shouldn't you be obeying us? But Putin will say, yes, sure, but I am the madman, so I am the one who needs to be listened to. Keep in mind, this is the mentality that these apologists and these Russophiles are trying to promote. A mentality of appeasement and of allowing the Russian terrorist regime to fully and completely get away with all of the crimes they have committed in the past, that are committing in the present, and are planning to commit in the future. And let nobody say that if Russia is allowed to have Ukraine, this war will end. because the only thing that's going to happen is more wars in the future. Russia already has troops in Moldova, and they're preparing for an invasion of that country also. And after that, who knows? Perhaps Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania will be next. We need to stop Russia now. And we stop Russia by supporting Ukraine. Help Ukraine protect peace!
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 Stop Russia! Stop the war!
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 Героям слава!
I would like us to commemorate with a minute of silence thousands and thousands of Ukrainian heroes who died protecting Ukraine, and for thousands of people who died, civilians, for hundreds of thousands who are fighting right now on the front line while we're standing here, as we count 500 days since the full-blown invasion started, 500 days since we started to protect our homeland. Thank you.
Minute silence, everybody.
Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
I would like to say that I wish for no nation for their children to get used to bomb shelters, for no nation to get used to bomb sirens during school time, for no doctors and no medical personnel to get used to providing essential and emergency medical care with generators and with candles around them because there is no electricity. And before we wrap up and we sing our national anthem, I would like to say thank you for everyone who came today. We don't have our speakers today, we don't have electricity yet. We have every single one of you, and I especially say thank you for our international friends who keep coming regularly for as long as this war will rage. They're gonna hear our voices on these streets. We're gonna raise money for the troops. We're gonna raise special tablets to purify water. Whenever any atrocity is done by Russians, we will come together and we will undo the evil that they've been doing in so many countries in 30 plus years under Russian flag. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава! Слава нації! Смерть ворогам! Україна! Понад усе! Україна! Понад усе! Україна! Понад усе! Найкращим захисникам України тричі! Слава! 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 І ворогам смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Dear friend, our vehicle has broken down and we didn't manage to make alternative arrangements in time. That's why we had to carry this out in a manual.
It didn't stop
so to
us.
speak. It didn't stop us. And we thank every one of you, and we thank our speakers who had to put their voice to test. Tomorrow we'll have everything sorted out, and it will be as usual with all the equipment, all the flags, and we'll be back. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
And speaking of which, tomorrow is a very important day, my friends, because tomorrow is the NATO summit in Lithuania. Tomorrow we should all bring our Union Jacks, and we we should all show our support for this country and for NATO. Because tomorrow will be a very important moment that will decide whether or not Ukraine will get the weapons it needs to defend itself. We must come here in numbers. We must show our support. We must tell the whole world we need NATO and NATO needs us. We must tell everybody that the countries in Europe, the countries who are close to Russia, to the Russian terrorist state, are not safe until they join NATO. They're not safe and nothing will make them safe. Russia will destabilize them. Russia will attack them. Russia will blackmail them. Russia will do everything in their power to try to ruin those countries and force them to come crawling to Russia and asking them to re-establish the Soviet Union. But my friends, they have another thing coming to them. They have underestimated Ukraine in the past, and they will not be able to do the same mistake again, because Ukraine will not allow them. So once again, tomorrow in our program will happen here at 3 o'clock. My friends, come here, bring your friends, bring the Union Jacks, bring the NATO flags, bring the EU flags, bring all kind of support that you can, because it is necessary. Tomorrow will be a very important day, and we will have a little performance here done by some of our lovely girls from Women Fight for Ukraine. You know, lovely people, you know, who have been very helpful to the Ukrainian cause. And I would definitely recommend you to check out their Instagram page. Very interesting stuff, very good stuff they're putting there. Now, my friends, this is not the only thing that's happening tomorrow. As I have been telling you before, and many of you already know, and many of you have already been there, I would invite every person who's willing and able to come to Speaker's Corner at 11 o'clock in the morning to train their ability to speak and debate. Because we cannot defend a cause without knowing what the opposition says, without knowing how to face that opposition. I think we should face the opposition head on. That is the only way to send a message across. And to be able to do that, we need to be informed and we need to be ready. We need to train ourselves so that we can use every moment, every precious moment of our ability to speak to the whole world, to send our message, the message of Ukraine, to tell the world that Ukraine is the victim and Ukraine needs help to finally end this war, to finally put the terrorist regime of Russia to rest, and to make sure that Russia does not attack any more countries anymore. Stop Russia, stop the war!
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 Air defense for Ukraine!
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 Fighter jets 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 for Ukraine!
Indeed, my friends, the whole world needs to know that Ukraine is not the only target of the Russian terrorist regime. It is only one of many countries that Russia has attacked. It is only one of many countries that Russia has broken their agreements with. Thank you very much, my friend. That man over there, our friend Vlad, he came to Speaker's Corner himself. He has shown his support. And every single one of you, my friends, should consider it, at very least. I understand that some people can't always make it, but tomorrow is an important day. It's a day where the history of Ukraine could be decided. If Ukraine gets the weapons that Ukraine needs, this war could be over very soon. But if certain countries continue to drag their feet and refuse to help Ukraine, then this war could carry on for longer. Because the Ukrainian military with Valery Zaluzhny in their head, who once again, today has his birthday, 50 years. Congratulations to him. And mind you, at the same day as this massive escalation by Russia has been lasting for 500 days. Today is the 500th day and the 50th birthday of Zaluzhny. That is some symbolism right there, keep in mind. Our commander, Valery Zaluzhny, he will not send Ukrainian troops to their deaths for no reason. He will not send them in meat waves. He will spare their lives. He will save them, as many of them as possible. And only put those troops in situations where they have the advantage. That is why Ukraine cannot act rashly. Ukraine cannot simply charge at the Russians and overtake them. The Russians have had a lot of time to mine every single little bit of land in south of Ukraine. The Russians have had a lot of time to dig trenches. They've had a lot of time to prepare. Why did they have this time? Because Ukraine did not get the armaments that Ukraine needed. We are very grateful for every little bit of help we were getting. But my friends, the help Ukraine is getting right now is not enough. Every country in the world should follow the example of countries like Latvia and Portugal, who do not have large militaries, who do not have a huge investment in their military, but who have donated a huge percentage of their military capabilities to Ukraine, because they know they are not a threat right now. As long as Russia is fighting against Ukraine, those countries are safe. But if Ukraine falls, all countries will follow. That is a certainty. We must keep in mind that although some of our allies, like the US, have been helping us a lot, all the help that US has given to Ukraine has amounted to still less than 5% of the American investment in their military yearly. Less than 5%, my friends. That is not enough. If we get the help Ukraine needs, if the US stops playing around with Russia and stops trying to appease China and simply goes forth and says, yes, we want Ukraine to win, then this war will be over very soon. But that is why we must all stand united. We must all stand together to make this idea a reality. All together, we will win!
All together, we will win!
All together,
we will win! All together, we will win! All together, we will win! All together, we will win! All together, we will win! All together, we will win! All together, we will win!
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запанує ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем,
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Захисникам України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!